Welcome back, everybody.
Here in the studio yet again.
It's a hot one today, and I don't just mean the takes.
Welcome to Bravery Punch, the shonen show. I'm Kunai Kennie.
And I'm Doki Duffy.
Today we're going to be talking about endings in shonen anime, namely Attack on Titans.
Full spoilers ahead.
So we are going to be talking about the ending of Attack on Titan in part 2 of today's episode. But before we get to that, Doki Duffy, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about just shonen animes, kind of in general, what we look for, what we don't like, what we love. What I don't know how you want to open this up, but I want to talk about endings here a little bit.
Yeah, so if you haven't finished Attack on Titan, you don't need to pause the podcast. You don't need to turn us off. Just don't listen after the break. After the break, we'll go into full spoiler territory. But right now, we'll just lightly talk about some endings.
Yeah.
So the funny thing about shonen, right, is that they're so long that we don't often think about the ending. We're often just like thinking about the mega long journey.
Yeah, I think shows like Naruto, shows like One Piece, where there's almost no ending in sight when you start it, and that's kind of exciting to some degree because you are on this big, long, sprawling adventure, and there's a lot that can happen in each arc where you just kind of focus on the ending of an arc, the taking down of the villain of that arc, where coming to a conclusion is always a big heart wrench in a shonen.
I like what you said about the arcs. I haven't thought about that. That throughout a series, we kind of get a lot of little endings throughout the way, but we're expecting them. Like in One Piece, everybody talks about the feasts that happen as like a party. So we get a lot of little endings along the way, but they still never prepare us for the actual ending. Like I know one you're kind of an expert in that I'm not. Is if you think about Dragon Ball Z, I have not really watched the show, but when people talk about it with me, they never talk about the ending. I literally to this day don't know how Dragon Ball Z ends. I know about the Namek arc. I know about Cell and Boo. And maybe Boo's the ending, but it's such a big show and it has such an impact. I literally don't know how it ends. Like,
technically, it's still going, I guess.
Dragon Ball Z is still going?
I mean, it's Dragon Ball Super now, but
is that not Dragon Ball Z?
It's a continuation of it, yeah.
How does like Dragon Ball Z end?
With the slight spoilers here, folks.
For 30-year-old show?
Yeah, it's just the Majin Buu arc is where it ends. It's just like, and the greatest evil was defeated, and now they're all just kind of chilling.
Okay, so it ends kind of happy.
Yeah, it's a very happy ending. It's a very open-ended ending where it's like because I think there was, I don't know, don't quote me on this, but I think movies came out after. I mean, a lot of movies came out after the show. I think, quote me on it. What are some shonen that you think really succeed with their ending, and what is it about the ending that succeeds with you?
So the one that obviously comes to mind is Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. And I don't want to spoil that one in case there's some people out there who haven't experienced this magnificent show. Go watch it. Go watch all 64 episodes or whatever, then come back. But we can lightly talk about, we can talk about the ending in that it's been a long time, but the characters have their arcs wrapped up. It isn't terribly sad. It doesn't sound like a spoiler, but in the context of what we're going to talk about later today, like not having a sad ending is nice. And it just leaves you feeling, I don't know, you've reached the end of a real journey with that show. Where, there's some spoiler things I could say about where characters end up. I don't want to say that. But like romantic subplots reach the place you want them or you think they should wrap up naturally. Main characters' arcs reach conclusions that make sense for them and for the story. And that's what it's all about. It's all about the characters, I feel like. Like, the plot of these stories isn't anything ridiculous, but the characters feel like they've grown. They feel like they're reaching where it makes sense for us and it makes sense for them. And I don't feel like betrayed by them. Like, I'm, that could happen in other stories, perhaps.
I remember watching the ending of Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood at your house.
Oh, really?
When we were in high school, we watched it on that that weird couch chair thing that you
Oh
had
my
in your
gosh,
room.
the blue thing.
The
Oh
blue
no,
thing.
Oh no, in my room, the
Yeah.
lounge chair. Oh
Yeah. And I just remember I think we both teared up a little bit
Oh,
at that, like
yeah.
the final monologue at the end.
Oh yeah. I remember
yeah.
that now.
Yeah. But it's a great ending, yeah, just because I think, like you said, a lot of the characters' arcs coming to their final conclusion, the build up to the final battle is exciting, and that payoff is there too, where you get to watch the kind of fated duel that you've been looking for. And yeah, just when the conflict resolves in a a neat fashion.
And that sounds obvious, right? If you're not super familiar with shonen anime, first of all, why are you listening to us? Welcome. We love to have you. Second of all, that sounds really basic. That sounds like basic storytelling. But what are like some shonen anime that you can think of that ending is not exactly what we hoped for, perhaps?
I think the big example that hops to mind for me is Soul Eater, where I think it's a really fun journey, cool characters, great art style, fun concept, and the build, like there's a build up between the good forces and the evil forces, obviously, and when it gets to that final battle, the conclusion to it, the very reason we have the name of our podcast, it just ends with a bravery punch, and it just kind of feels like it undermines a lot of the growth we saw a lot of the characters have, a lot of people just getting wiped to the floor, and then it's just kind of it doesn't make sense within the power system that has been set up in the show. So it sounds kind of general when we're saying these things like, oh yeah, I want to see the big bad get defeated real good. Like, there are good anime fights and bad anime fights, and the final fight in Soul Eater, I think, is a bad anime fight because it doesn't work with the power system that has been established in the show. It doesn't make sense with a lot of character arcs, with how everyone kind of ends up there. So it's an ending that definitely doesn't pull through on those kind of big things that you wanted to.
And before you write in, we know why those kinds of endings happen. Like the Soul Eater original anime ending, the Full Metal Alchemist original anime ending. You could even maybe say like Bleach anime ending. Those are all like anime specific problems, because they like ran out of source material and tried to make their own thing. But it doesn't make any of what you said hurt less. Like
Yeah.
the Soul Eater story, if you just follow the anime, is pretty tight. It's like pretty, it's a story and it has beats and it goes on, and then all of a sudden it just falls apart right at the end. And we see that throughout shonen. I mean, does it happen in the Soul Eater manga? Because you have read that too.
Yeah, it's been a long time, but I do remember the ending feeling kind of quick, where it just ended and it didn't quite feel wrapped up. But it's really been a long time since I've read that manga, so it's hard for me to say. I do want to actually go back and read it sometime soon, with enjoying Fire Force as much as I have by the same person, and I wanted to I don't know, just wanted to give it another try to see how it feels the second time, see how that ending is.
Yeah, and just to give another example of a really promising start and then lackluster ending, just because it's easy to say this is an anime problem, right? It's like, well, just don't adapt the show or the manga if it's not done. But like, look at Promised Neverland. Promised Neverland, we've talked about on the show. Go back and listen to that old ep. But as a reminder, it was an incredibly successful manga. And on the anime side, they decided to just end it. They just decided to like make a custom ending when the manga was done. And then even on the manga original side, the end of that story is confusing. It doesn't, who cares about the plot? It feels disingenuous to where the characters are going. Like, that's just another example of, I feel like the characters struggled a lot and they got really nothing out of it. And it was just, if you read it, if you haven't read it, don't. Just don't. So why does this happen? Why do we have these stories that have such good beginnings and middles and later parts, but then fall apart? Like, what's going on?
I don't know. I'm trying to. When you brought up the Full Metal Alchemist original anime, that movie ending, I just
my God.
thought of that again, and they made Hughes a Nazi, and I can't stop thinking about that right now. That I needed to say that.
2003 Conquerors of Shambhala.
Yes, that's the name.
Don't watch this movie. I mean, watch this movie with some friends to laugh at, but do not watch this movie for closure, because you get Mace Hughes, beloved father, the Nazi.
Yeah, he's just a Nazi.
Wow, this really ties into what we're going to be talking about in the second half. Huh?
It does. Wow. It really does.
We planned this.
What I think, Sorry, what was your original question?
So, I mean, again? I was thinking about the negatives. But we don't have to stay on the negatives. It's hard because I don't want to spoil a lot of these stories for folks.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of negative, or at least underwhelming, examples in anime and manga and shonen, anything.
Yeah, I think something that just happens too within the shonen world is burnout from the writers. I think with how Shonen Jump works, a new chapter every week, continuing these big long stories. I feel like sometimes they maybe don't fully think about. I don't know the process.
Yeah.
But sometimes it feels like they don't fully think about an ending. Maybe. Like I think of Naruto. I think Naruto has some really strong beats in it, some really strong character dynamics, and Super Eye Patch Wolf actually talks about this in a video he has. Hopefully he's a friend of the show one day. But he has a video called The Highs and Lows of Naruto. But there's just a kind of a moment midway through Shippuden where kind of like the these are some minor spoilers, but like the Sasuke character arc kind of concludes with his relationship with his brother. A lot of the Naruto stuff is kind of like, he has found his community, which I feel like is a driving factor for his character arc in the beginning of the series.
That's like after the pain fight, right?
Yeah. Where it just kind of keeps going, and it just raises more questions that sometimes don't end up answered throughout a series. And so there's just, I feel like we're starting to see less of that with it seeming to be more short, concise shonen like Demon Slayer. It just kind of has one story that's not hundreds and hundreds of chapters. So maybe we'll see less of that, but I feel like with shows kind of these bigger Dragon Ball Z, Naruto, Bleach, Hunter x Hunter, like when they have super, super long stories, they don't really know where to find their ending.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't want to stay too negative because I know the second half of this episode is going to get a little heavier. There's a fair warning ahead. So we talked about Full Metal as a great ending. One that I want to bring up that I know is not literally anime, but is very largely inspired by shonen anime, is Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yeah.
I know it's not anime technically, but that show is just in a league of its own, and the ending is incredibly satisfying.
You get the big good fight.
Multiple fights. All the characters have their arcs resolved in very meaningful ways. There's one weird cliffhanger with Zuko's mom. That's like the one thing I could knock the ending for. So inspired by shonen anime there too, I guess. But I wish we could see more of that. I guess that show is more that show is obviously a different production cycle, like you were talking about. Like that show is planned, and they were not writing it every week, and it was not just one person writing it every week. So can we not get satisfying endings under that kind of schedule? Is it like doomed to cause? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm. It is interesting now that we're talking about it, and I'm thinking about it, how it seems like a lot of times they do like to kind of leave things open-ended. For example, with Naruto, Boruto happens next, so it never really ends. I mean, Dragon Ball Z, Super happens, but
GT,
GT happened. Technically, I don't think that's canon anymore, though.
Oh, well.
But it's interesting. I think sometimes they like to leave things open-ended, maybe just for monetary reasons.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. But I mean, like, I don't know. I was trying to think of like Yu Yu Hakusho, but I can't remember the ending to that series, honestly, because I haven't watched in a while. But again, I think of that more in kind of arcs where there's
Right.
some conclusions to some really amazing arcs. Same with Hunter x Hunter. I think the Chimera Ant arc is like fantastic, and the conclusion to that arc is great. But the adventure goes on with some of these, and I don't know.
Let's talk about the arc endings, because you said that right at the start, and I think that was actually really insightful. I mean, you're a pretty smart guy. So like, can we think of like any arc endings? I mean, all the One Piece ones are good, but like, why is that? Is it that the author has a better idea of where the arc is going to end? And like, I feel like it's two things that you kind of said to summarize. One, the author knows the arc needs to end. They've got a big bad guy or whatever, and it's got to be taken down by the hero. Pretty much always happens. And then two, it's not literally the end. It's always advancing the story or getting us to the next place. And so maybe those two factors combined enable the arc ending to be really satisfied. And when you don't have that second half of the story continuing, that's when it gets weird.
Mm-hmm.
Like for Naruto, we've been kind of harping on Naruto's ending being bad. The Pain fight, that whole Pain arc is what got me into freaking anime in general. Like, that was such a conclusive battle.
Yeah.
And ended with Naruto like getting all the recognition of the village and stuff. And that was super satisfying.
But then that arc kind of lets us down with sort of betraying a lot of what happens in that huge sequence. And I'm sorry, minor Naruto spoiler here. Right, it's a kind of a big Naruto spoiler.
It's fine, it's Naruto.
But at the end of that Pain arc, when that fight happens, a lot of people die. Mm-hmm. But then Pain's like, lol, JK, I'm reviving everyone with this super ninjutsu.
I honestly forgot about that.
And it's exciting that a lot of our favorite characters are back, but at the same time, like, it was a really powerful moment for a lot of these characters to see them fall and to think like, wow, how is this going to go on? Where it introduces this safety net too of like, oh, people can just kind of come back from the dead, and it just betrayed so much of the emotion that you felt when that arc was going on.
Dude, I was trying to give Naruto one thing. I was going out of my way to be like, look, I really don't like this show, but I was trying to give it this one thing, and you're like, no, actually, Naruto's still bad. And you're right. It is still bad. What about, let's think of like a Hunter x Hunter arc ending.
Oh my God, the Chimera Ant arc ending.
I mean, I didn't love that. And tell me on that ending. Remind me of that ending and why the ending specifically is so good.
So this is an interesting ending, because I know I was talking about you love a good big bad fight, but in the Chimera Ant arc, Gon does not fight the King Chimera Ant.
Right.
That they never interact. They don't know about each other.
Some might say that's questionable. For, some might not be into that. Some being me.
Gon's main qualm is with Neferpitu, cat ant bug lady, one of the servants of the king, Medu, something like that.
I don't remember.
But he, Gon does have that fight. That interaction is crazy. Gon gives up. I'm sorry, we're going to spoil some things minorly here, folks. I'm just going to say it. But Gon gives up the ability to use Nen to go into the form he does in order to beat this, not even the big boss. This is kind of a selfish moment for Gon, but he just wants to destroy this thing, and he does. And it's crazy, it's dark, and it's intense. And then we have the king fights against the head of the Hunter Association, and animation just top notch. It's Madhouse Productions. I always get Madhouse and Bones mixed up.
I honestly don't remember,
but I'm pretty sure it's Madhouse. Just knocks it out of the park. So we have some really exciting fights happen, but then these just emotional fights too. Every fight that happens has some like real weight behind it, and it's just really interesting too, because the king has his whole relationship with the shogi player, and all they do is play shogi, and to see the end of that is really emotional, and it just has a lot of really interesting beats that you don't get in a lot of shonen endings. That I really, that's why I love Hunter x Hunter. I just think it has some really bizarre anime moments that you don't get in your typical shonen.
And does it set up for the next thing? I don't even remember, because that's kind of the end of where the anime gets to.
Yeah, so it does. It's again, whoa, lo-fi beats. Yeah.
I'll just.
So yeah, it does set up kind of the next arc. Killua kind of has to save Gon because Gon's super injured. He has to find his sister or something like that. But it's still going. Hunter x Hunter's still going. We're getting new chapters. It's not over yet. There's no ending. So the adventure goes on. What is crazy too, speaking of endings, is we got Oda's little message about One Piece is coming to an end, probably at least another 5 years. I feel
don't know.
like
That he's been saying we've been in the end game for a long time. Because I would feel Wano isn't even really over yet.
Yeah.
Like if Wano had really ended before the time skip, I'd be like, whoa, dude, it's really happening. But like, there's still stuff going down in Wano that's like big stuff.
Yeah.
And it had Wano ended before the time skip, I would be feeling it. I'd be really feeling it. But the fact that Wano's not even over and could go on for months longer, like, it just doesn't feel real yet.
Yeah, as of today that we're recording this, a new chapter is going to be out Sunday after the month-long hiatus. So we're going to be different men. Come this Sunday. Are there any other shonen endings, or any? I mean, I guess we can open it up maybe a little more generally to some other anime endings. I think another top-notch, Code Geass, which I think we might end up talking a little bit in the second half.
Yeah.
About that ending, just in how it relates to Attack on Titan's ending.
Yeah, a lot of other anime that are not based on like the shonen magazine published manga have the benefit of getting a little more planning for their ending, I feel like. I think Code Geass was original. I think it was an anime original, and so they probably had that ending in mind when they set out to write the story. And so I just feel like that really benefits them when they don't have that weekly release schedule.
Yeah.
Is what he keeps coming back to. I should have written this down, but other anime endings that have been really satisfying.
Well, I would be remiss not to mention JoJo's, of course. But again, that's kind of an interesting case with how each part works. It ends with setting up another part after that. Kind of that.
Actually, not really. I feel like part 3 ends really nicely. If you wanted to stop after part 3, which I don't think you should, but like part 3 doesn't necessarily make you watch other parts.
Right.
Part 4 doesn't really either.
Yeah,
and you just know there's more. Yeah. But I actually think those arcs.
Part 5 too is pretty insular as well.
Yeah, it's like I would say part 1. You don't want to just watch the end of part 1.
Yeah,
and obviously in the anime, part 2. I don't know if they did this in the manga. Part 2 literally sets up with Joseph going to Japan. But I actually think arc-wise, there is some really great, like the part 3 Stardust Crusaders ending really wraps everything up. I mean, a lot of the boys don't make it, unfortunately, but we get the really nice scene of Jotaro and Joseph on the plane, and they reflect on everything they've had, and I think it's a pretty good ending for an arc. And
then the Jotaro Dio fight is just incredible. It's built up the whole series, and then you just get some hot dudes flying.
They're flying, and I literally said this before. It's funny because I'm saying this to the benefit of you listeners. Kunai Kennie knows this take. I've probably said on the show already. That's like a really rare example of a Deus Ex Machina that's like kind of built up. Like the flying does come out of nowhere, but Jotaro being able to stop time is like kind of set up because of all the stand talk they do. Is part 3 just like a really, really solid arc ending of like manga and anime?
yeah.
That's what I'm telling myself.
Yeah, it is 100%. That's why I have this tattoo on my arm.
Is Araki just built different? Like what?
He is. He literally is built different. They just there was a new pic of Araki just dropped, and he still looks like he's in his 30s, but he's like 65, I think, something like that.
But wait, this is interesting. Maybe we should have planned this episode out more. But like this kind of goes against what we were saying, because I was kind of believing that the arc endings are good because like of all shonen, because they always set up to the next one. But I feel like JoJo's is a good counterexample to that.
Yeah, it's just maybe each part I don't think of as an arc is a little different than an arc, because I feel like an arc implies that it continues on into another arc.
You think they're like arcs within the JoJo parts is what you're saying?
Yeah, okay. Like, there's part 1 of Stardust Crusaders and part 2. Those are 2 arcs, like when they're getting to Egypt, when they're in Egypt.
Yeah,
those are 2 arcs where I think the parts are. JoJo's a weird, it's a bizarre, if you will, example of shonen, just because it's broken up into different sections, and yes, there are some connections, but all in all, like part 1 and 2 are kind of hand in hand.
Yeah, they're kind of a duo.
But all the other parts kind of, they do refer back to things that have happened before, but they have their own story, I guess.
And they wrap up pretty conclusively. I feel like
you can really stop watching JoJo's at the end of each arc, which you shouldn't do.
But yeah, don't, because then you'll miss Stone Ocean, which we're going to be talking about as soon as we get more of it.
One day.
All right, so takeaway is JoJo's is just built different,
and
arc endings are good, story endings are bad. Is that where we're left here in this end of part 1?
I think, I don't know. Yeah, a lot of shonen. As much as we maybe we're being a little cynical here. Prove us if we're wrong. Sometimes it feels as though some shonen don't know how to draw to a full close. But at the same time, we get our Full Metal Alchemists, and we get our JoJo part endings. But I don't know. Sometimes it's just open-ended, is it?
Just like this is open-ended and not quite the end of the show, because we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we are doing full Attack on Titan spoilers.
Maybe some Code Geass spoilers as well.
You never know. Honestly, I'll try to put it at the top of the app, but just if you don't like, you can hit that skip 15 seconds ahead button if you don't like what you're hearing. Yeah. So come back. We'll be here. If you like what you're hearing, make sure to follow the podcast wherever you are listening to it, and rate us 5 stars if you think we deserve it. I hope you do. Make sure to share the podcast as well with any people out there who might like it.
Check us out on Instagram as well, at Bravery Punch, and also on Twitter, at Bravery Punch. We're also excited to announce the Bravery Punch website, braverypunch.wordpress.com, where you can listen to the latest episodes, and we'll be posting blogs every once in a while on topics we can't dive into on the show.
Welcome back to Bravery Punch. We are going full steam ahead into Attack on Titan anime and manga spoilers. Last chance to back out, but like Kunai Kennie titled this episode, we truly think that we've done the job for you here. We have finished Attack on Titan so that you do not need to.
Yeah, if you've started Attack on Titan and you're waiting for part 3 of the anime to come out, maybe stick around with us. It might sour your view of what started out as a really fantastic show.
So where do we even begin? Should we just get right out the gate and explain why we think this ending is bad, and then kind of explore the ramifications of it?
Well, I guess I wanted to quickly touch on why we decided to read the manga ending. Part 2 of the anime, part 2 of the final season of the anime concluded, and we were left with finding out that a year later, part 3 of the final season is going to be coming out, and that just made us both upset. We hadn't been enjoying the season a ton, and I just wanted to rip the Band-Aid off and get it over with. It was only like, it's like 9 chapters or something like that that were left, and I just wanted to wrap it up.
But little did Kunai Kenny know that the wound had been festering under that Band-Aid for far too long.
Yeah. It says genocide's good. I get. Where do we start? How do we talk about
in this ending? Like, let's just be clear. In this ending, our main character literally kills 80% of the world's population. Like, literally, that happens, and then the characters thank him for it.
Yeah.
Like, that is, and this is not a joke. That is literally what happens. It is not a translation thing. It is not really a debate. Our characters say, you know what, Aaron? I don't really approve of this, but thank you.
We understand why you did it, and we think you're good for it.
And I just like, sure, maybe Armin's out of his mind. Maybe it's just Armin, right? Surely, but no, like Mikasa never directly thanks Aaron, but like the very final scene of the manga is her like crying and reminiscing about Aaron. Like, replace Aaron with Hitler here. Like, that is what, like, mega Hitler.
Yeah.
That is what Mikasa is crying under a tree saying, thank you, mega Hitler, for giving me a scarf. You can't write that story.
Yeah, and this is kind of separate from the whole genocide thing, but I was just upset, too, with how they turned the Aaron-Mikasa relationship into a romantic one. In the end, I don't know. I always kind of felt like they had more of a brother-sister kind of thing with how they'd been raised, and
like that's a thing we can discuss. We can have a discourse about the dynamics of the relationship. There's no discourse to be had about genocide, like literal genocide. And so we don't want to harp on this too much, but like the ending has some harmful implications because the characters are cool with it. That's really the end. The long and short of it is that the characters ultimately are chill with Aaron's actions, and you just can't be chill with genocide. Hot take alert, everybody.
Doki Doki Duffy will be having an article by the time this episode's out. It'll be up on our website. Check it out. It'll dive a little bit further into this topic because it's a heavy one. We don't want to talk about too much right now.
But so like character wise, I feel like I was betrayed by this ending. Sure, Aaron had been acting weird. Something had been up with him. We've kind of talked about him, but like Armin has kind of been a shut. Like up until the very end, I feel like was the best character.
Yeah,
and then really flipped around with being cool with this.
Yeah, I feel like what's so weird about how it all wraps up is moments before Armin and Aaron have kind of their final conversation. They're on their way to stop Aaron because they're like, everything he's doing right now is terrible. This is terrible.
Right.
Everything that's happening is bad. Like nothing good can come out of this. And then just because Aaron says like, I was doing it for you, I knew I had to make myself the bad guy because I saw the future, it just doesn't sit right with me, with them being like, oh, because you're doing all this for us, it's okay. You weren't doing it for selfish reasons. You're not saving humanity.
Exactly.
Like we get this whole scene of like these kids we'd never met before, just kind of living their lives. And then we see them get stomped by Titans.
Yeah.
And it's just dark and heavy, and I don't like that. I can't look at Aaron and be like, yeah, I do feel good about what you did here, and I agree with the character's decisions to forgive you. The characters fought so hard to save lives and protect people. They lost so many friends along the way, that to have them be so okay with bajillions of people dying, like it doesn't feel like the characters that we've known the whole series.
Exactly. And one character where there's a lot of room for sort of the morally gray, we don't know where we stand with this character is Reiner. And Reiner also betrays us. Not even like Mikasa and Armin we expect to be good people. They kind of betray us by being chill with genocide. Reiner betrays us by not having a character arc in the end. Like Reiner goes through all this up and down. Like he's cool in the very beginning. Then we hate him. Then we kind of feel bad. Like blah, blah, blah. It literally ends with him like fawning over Historia, who's married and not in the story anymore. And that's it. Like he's suicidal at one point, and just we don't get anything for that.
Yeah.
It's just Reiner is sniffing her handwriting and acting like a child. And then Historia too is not in the story anymore.
It's a weirdly open-ended conclusion. Like, I don't know if we're ever gonna get more, but like,
gosh, I hope not.
The story like didn't feel like it ended either. Like they were still kind of in like in the epilogue. It's like we're still fighting,
right? And that's like why it's kind of harmful, because Eren, the Jaegerists, like the Eren Jaeger followers, literally end like winning. They win having control over the world or the island or whatever, and that's just not a good message just to send to people.
Yeah.
So like, is there anything else you want to say on this part?
I don't know. It's just there's a lot to unpack here with this ending.
Why I keep using the word betrayed is because I feel like you'd agree with me on this, that the story starts off really hopeful and really optimistic, where that's what shonen anime is all about. It's all about dreams. I think we talked about this on our original Attack on Titan episode, where the dream is always this hopeful thing that seems outlandish, where it's become the Pirate King, become the Hokage, like save all the people. And right from the get-go, Eren Jaeger's was weird. It was kill all the Titans. And maybe that should have tipped us off, because it was never save humanity from the Titans. It was never actually make sure no kid ever has their mom get eaten by the Titans again. It was murder all the Titans, which in retrospect is murder all the oppressed Jewish analog people. Anyway, that's horrible. But that aside, like maybe we could have seen it from the get-go, but even pushing that aside, it was still hopeful. Like the Scout Corps, the Recon Corps, whatever you want to call them, I think they embodied the ideals that we come to these stories for. They persevered, they grew through struggle, they had hope for a better world, and they dared to challenge their status quo. Everybody thought it was ridiculous to go outside the walls. There's no point to going outside the walls. And yet they still did, because they had this like enduring human spirit. And that is what hooked me on the show. Like, that was so cool.
Yeah, they're like, I cried to this show.
Yeah. Like, it is like, look, if you like Attack on Titan, we are not going to tell you to not like it. Except you probably shouldn't like the ending. Like, that's questionable. Like all these parts up until the time skip, I really exemplify shonen storytelling in a darker, new way we haven't seen before, but still embodying a lot of optimism, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Like the first part of the show does feel really hopeful, but then the second half just gets really dark, and then it kind of becomes a story of no one's the good guy, everyone's the bad guy. It turns into this whole, you know, ancestral war as well, and it feels, I don't know. It just doesn't deliver on the kind of everybody is a bad guy story. This isn't a shonen anime, but one series that I think does a really fantastic job of this is the Last of Us video game series. It's, you know, the post-apocalyptic zombie world where everyone's just doing what they can to survive, and no one is really a great person, but sometimes you got to do things to survive. And it tells really great, compelling character stories in a really dark, twisted, messed up world. And here in Attack on Titan, what starts out as such a hopeful, driving human spirit story, like you were saying, turns into like, oh, all these characters that you've loved the whole time all think that they've done horrible and terrible things. Like it hit such a different tone in the second half that was like, I'm watching a different show right now. Like, it feels weird for me to Gene to feel like he's like, I've done horrible things to my comrades and stuff, where it's like, I don't, like, not really, dude. Like, you were like, there wasn't a ton you could do to save people. You didn't like really lead. You did a lot of good things, and like for him and Reiner in the end to be like, we're the same person.
Yeah.
It's like, no. Reiner, like
committed war crimes as a child.
Yeah.
So
Gene maybe committed some war crimes as an adult in Marley, but
so the scene he's talking about, just to fully paint the picture, is in final season part 2. They're all sitting around a campfire. We've got Reiner, Annie's there, the little Falco Labardi or whatever his name is, and then the remaining non-Aaron crew. And they literally have that conversation. Reiner and Jean or Jean or however you say it are literally like, we're the same.
Yeah.
It's like, does Isayama want us to think, the author, does he want us to think they're the same? Because they're not.
Yeah, it just the way that they're trying to paint everyone's a bad guy. It doesn't work in the way that they wanted to, when I think just some people do some monumentally bad things compared to other people who maybe have done some bad things, but the circumstances feel much different with the two sides that they're setting up.
Yeah, so thematically we feel betrayed here. Character arc wise, they fizzle out or just flat out reversal on us. One little thing, I mean, a detail that is just brought up in the end that I feel is really gross is that Ymir, the like original ancestor, who's like repeatedly abused and other awful acts are like committed against her by the king. It's like said that she loved the king in the end. Do you remember that?
Yeah,
that's just why. Like that's just ick.
Yeah. Yeah. It has a lot of weird themes at the end.
Yeah.
And I just miss the days when we were just fighting to survive, sheer human power, spirit to learn and to explore. Like
right before we got on, what did you say you wanted the ending of Attack on Titan?
It just should have been when they got to the ocean.
Right.
You know, if you're for some reason still listening and you haven't watched Attack on Titan, yeah, watch it up to is it season 3? Is that at the end of season 3 when they make it to the ocean? Because it just the whole core of the show just kind of shifts in the next part, and it feels like it's trying to be edgier than it wants to be. And I mentioned in part 1 that there might be some minor Code Geass spoilers, and that's because this ending really just kind of felt like a worse version of the Code Geass ending, which is, like I said, spoilers. The Code Geass ending is Lelouch ultimately had to become the bad guy in order to unite the world against kind of a common enemy to bring everyone together. And it's a really beautiful scene where his sister learns all this, and she realizes everything he did was for her. His best friend knows about this and is kind of taking up the Zero mantle. Or takes down Zero. I
don't remember the details.
I don't remember the finite details.
I remember though that he does not commit genocide.
Yeah,
and he's not literally evil.
Yeah, I think he does some bad.
He subjugates people.
Yeah, I think he does some bad things, but it's the way it wraps up feels more in line with kind of the characters and the way, we know Lelouch is a mastermind, always thinking one step ahead. So it makes sense for him to have this whole grand plan in the end when you think he's kind of gone off the rails.
And can I jump in?
Yeah.
And the other thing is, I think only Nonali, I think that's his sister's name.
Yeah.
Only she knows the truth, and C2, I guess. And maybe Suzaku. Okay, so only a couple characters.
Yeah.
But Cullen, who's another main character, she doesn't know what's going on, and she ends the story, I think, hating Lelouch. Imagine if she at the end was just like, oh my god, thank you for being evil. It would just undo everything.
A lot of the emotion that we felt for these characters as, Aaron said terrible things to them, and there's this scene when Armin's talking to Aaron, and he's like, well, how do you feel about Mikasa? And then Aaron's like, I love her. I want her. And it's I want her to be mine.
I want her to miss me. He was like, I want her to not be with anybody after I die.
Yeah.
I don't know, bro. Maybe don't commit global genocide.
Yeah.
And then you can pursue your adopted sister.
Yeah. It's just that Aaron, like is just throughout the series like a pretty emotionally driven character. So it just didn't fully feel in line with him to be like, JK, I had this whole grand scheme.
Yeah.
I'm a mastermind. It's like, you're not. Armin's the master. Like, it would make sense if Armin like was, I don't know,
yeah, if Armin was the big bad guy.
Yeah, the big bad guy. Yeah. But I think the ending I would have I don't know exactly how I would have done it, but I kind of like the idea of Eren just becoming the full villain at the end, where he has no redemption. I think there's an interesting anime in there where to see the arc of a character turn into a villain, the main character at that is really interesting, and for the kind of the rest of the crew to have to take him down in the end would be, I think, a really emotionally driven showdown. But
yeah, it might not have been good, but it would have been like tolerable.
Yeah. I think there's a way they could have done that would have been a lot more powerful. But it just like I've been saying, I feel like the emotion is just really drawn out of the end when all these characters have been having kind of moral dilemmas with their feelings towards Eren in the end, and deciding whether or not that they want to go through and kill him. They're like, a lot of them are like, we can maybe change his mind, but then they're like, okay, we need to kill him. That's the decision we're coming to. And then to just have it be like, oh, Eren, thank you. Like, we love you. You did it. You son of a bitch.
You were rapscallion.
You were rapscallion.
Oh,
you, Eren. It's like I felt, I don't know, like I still in the end kind of, felt a lot of things for these characters. And it didn't deliver for a lot of them in the way. And we even see too, at one point in the end, I thought that this was just going to happen, but they undid it like Naruto Pain style. But Connie and Jean turn into Titans.
Oh, I don't even remember.
They like inhale like some Titan spinal fluid when Zeke has to yell to like turns people into Titan in the big kind of like climactic battle, and it's really intense. I remember like reading that and being like, wow, like that's powerful. But then Eren was like, I'm undoing all the Titans. They're gonna turn back into people. I just undo power buttons like that just feel cheap and void of feeling.
Absolutely. You remember, it's one thing we got out of this tragedy of an ending though. We got Falco as a bird.
Falco did become Falco.
Bird Titan.
Bird Titan. Yeah. I mean, so we called this we finished Attack on Titan, so you don't have to. We didn't hit really a lot of story beats, but I guess what we're trying to say is, if you are still here with us and you haven't finished Attack on Titan and you like it to some degree, it's really, I don't know, it just, like Soul Eater, it makes me not want to go back to the beginning of the series. Same with Game of Thrones as well. The ending, when it's bad like that, I'm just like, I don't really care to go back. I don't know. Maybe I'm being a little bit cynical with that here. As we said in part one, sometimes the arcs are the best parts of these things.
But the tough thing for me with this ending, I've talked about feeling betrayed by the story, but then what this means for like anime as a whole is like, I don't want to say scary, but like disappointing. Like it's a major bummer that basically the most mainstream anime, like one of them, has this as its ending, and that this is what is going to hit so many people like next year whenever the show comes out. Like, it's just embarrassing that our biggest thing, like as anime fans, one of them is Attack on Titan. Like, you see so many people wearing the jackets, you see so many people like get excited.
I own one of the jackets.
Yeah, because like the beginning is cool and the aesthetic is cool and blah blah blah, but like now we're going to have to like look at our parents and be like, yeah, I liked the like genocide show. Like, we're gonna have to tell our friends like, oh yeah, dude, actually don't watch Attack on Titan like that shit.
Yeah.
Like that's embarrassing. And we just the thing I want to end, I don't, not necessarily end, but the like positive spin I want to put on that is like, don't get too bummed about Attack on Titan. Just go watch other things. Like at least, like even Naruto. Like at least Naruto doesn't end with like genocide. Like go watch Hunter x Hunter. It hasn't ended, so it can't disappoint you. Like just go watch and enjoy any other show, and be ready to recommend other shows to people after they're left like hollow by this ending.
I'm really interested to see kind of the after effects of when the anime ending comes. Are people still going to be wearing the pins? Are people still going to be wearing the jackets? I mean, it's unfortunate. Like I think it's unfortunate, but I don't. Again, I keep saying this. I don't know if I'm being cynical, but I feel like I can't wear that jacket anymore.
I know it's tough. It's a cool look.
It's a cool look, but like,
that's the jacket of Eren Yeager.
Yeah,
like nobody rocks the Hitler mustache anymore. It's like, are you really like? No, but it's cool. You know, you didn't understand before the whole genocide thing. It's like, no, like that kind of ruins the look.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my god, our freaking Attack on Titan jackets, the Hitler mustache of weebs. Oh my
god. Any other points? What I guess can we take away from the Attack on Titan ending?
I guess one thing on a sort of, I don't even want to call it political, but just like awareness level, I guess we just got to be more vigilant for this kind of thing going forward, because like I said at the beginning of this second section, the fact that Eren's dream was always kind of more violent than protecting people, we'll be aware of that. I'm definitely gonna be on the lookout for stuff like that from now on, because to me, that's not what a shonen hero is about. It's about saving people. I want the dream to be liberate people from the Titans, not I'm gonna kill all the Titans. So I'm definitely gonna be looking out for that kind of thing, and just not letting myself get too attached to a story I don't have faith in. And what I mean by that is like, we always got to bring up One Piece. Well, I know One Piece will never get there. Like One Piece has done enough with its story to show that like Oda believes in the liberation of oppressed people and like that murder is bad. And so like we just got to look out for that kind of stuff. And if a show gives us kind of weird vibes, to like just be aware of that and know, and like not get too sucked in. Not even that Attack on Titan did is the tough part, but like maybe if we get to another show where it's like the post time skip Attack on Titan, like maybe realize then and not go forward with the ending. I don't know. What are you gonna do after this?
Take a shower.
I
know. Clean off the
yeah, for real,
the Attack on Titan grime. It's, I don't know. I feel like we as viewers, I mean, with anime, it's, you know, I don't know how much control or power we have over the content that we are given from the shonen world. But I don't know. Attack on Titan, it was a cultural monument for anime. Absolutely. It's why it's as popular as it is today. And I just wish, like, I wish we were in the timeline where that was JoJo's
or One Piece or literally anything else.
Because it is, I don't know, just to have people from the crevices of the internet come out after this ending to support it. I don't want to see that. I don't want anime communities to be like that. I don't want there to be these kind of dark, grimmer political discussions. Not to say that anime can't bring up good political points and have political discussions, but this one just feels ick.
This one was not it.
It's just is not it. It's not where I want the dialogue of the community to go, and I just hope it can inspire maybe some more not lighthearted, but just maybe some anime workers to come out of their crevices to be like, let's make Attack on Titan, but not genocide-y. Yeah. Let's make it one that has a more politically sound message. But I don't know. Maybe we don't need our shonen to be as political as Attack on Titan got.
Well, I mean, One Piece always is, and that's why it's the best. But that's also
That's
that's what we're trying to do here too. We are trying to provide, or at least foster, a community that is positive and welcoming to everybody, and is not really down for the kind of messages that the ending of Attack on Titan gave us.
Yeah, I know we were kind of a little more sour this episode on Attack on Titan, and it's always unfortunate to, always bad talk in anime. But we're both just kind of hurt for a series that we love, that we grew up on. One of the big reasons that we do this show, it's an anime that definitely shaped us, and I think we really expected a lot from it, and to be to use a word that Doki Doki Duffy has used so many times, to be betrayed by it.
Uragiri mono.
In the end, it doesn't feel good, and yeah, I don't know. I want to end on more of a positive note.
Well, next week we'll do some One Piece reactions. We got a new chapter coming out next step. We'll do some One Piece reactions.
Yeah, as the show kind of goes on, I know in the first season we did a lot of kind of, I don't know if critical analysis is the right word, but we were looking at one show kind of the whole episode, and we still will do those episodes from time to time, but I think we are going to get a little bit more free form with things, talk about new chapters, what shows are coming out, keep you up to date with the latest and greatest in shonen, because Bravery Punch is the shonen show.
I'm Doki Doki Duffy.
I'm Kunai Kennie, and Doki Doki, where does Attack on Titan leave in the punch scale?
Oh, it threw way too many murderous punches that do not belong in this genre.
I wish I could punch it. I wish I could give it a good old bravery punch.
I wish I could punch it right at the ocean part.
Thanks for listening.
Stay brave, everyone.
かっこいいアニメパワーアップドキドキスタート
Subscribe to Bravery Punch wherever you get your podcasts. Share the podcast with anyone who'd like it, and rate it 5 stars. Also check out our new website at braverypunch.wordpress.com. See you next time, everyone. Stay brave.